Theological pipe.
I've been expecting you. Bingo! Yahtzee!
There is a God.
I speak jive.
I'm not him.
It was 35 years ago on this very date, March 24th, 1986. Two pretty momentous things happened. One we're not going to talk about, which was on this date, was the date that the Breakfast Club went to detention. And you can watch the movie The Breakfast Club and you can see that when it opens up it says the date March 24th, 1986. But also March 24th, 1986, one of the greatest days in rock and roll history, in my opinion. I was a huge Van Halen fan before 1986. The album 1984, I was 14 years old at the time when it came out, and the song Jump, it was just poppy enough to be poppy, but it was rock and roll, and Eddie Van Halen's a guitar god. And I've talked about Eddie Van Halen in a previous podcast when he passed away. I did a tribute to him. I mean, the dude is just one of the greatest of all time. That's not even debatable. I think you can debate who's the greatest, and I don't know that you could put anyone as the all-time greatest guitarist, but you have Eddie Van Halen up there, no doubt. And I love Van Halen. And when 1984 came out, I got that cassette tape and wore it out. Great songs on that album. I'll call it an album, tape, whatever we call it these days. I don't even know. Now they just do MP3s. But I went and bought Van Halen 1 and Van Halen 2 and Fair Warning and Women and Children. I bought all their other cassettes. And Eddie Van Halen, again, was just a guitar god. He was just incredible, and I was a huge Van Halen fan. And also at the same time, Sammy Hagar came out with an album. I think his cassette came out in '85. It was called VOA, Voice of America. The track that everyone would probably remember from that album is I Can't Drive 55. I was a huge Van Halen fan and a huge Sammy Hagar fan. Loved his stuff. I went and bought some of his older albums, Three Lock Box. There's a compilation called Red. I just love Sammy Hagar, loved Van Halen. And two of my all-time favorites, still two of my all-time favorites. And in 85, 86, I think it was 85, Van Halen broke up. David Lee Roth left the band, and you could probably spend days, if not weeks, watching video clips and watching interviews with David Lee Roth and Van Halen and the Van Halen brothers and Michael Anthony about what led to the breakup. The important part was when they broke up, David Lee Roth released a solo album, Crazy from the Heat, and California Girls and I'm Just a Gigolo were two songs that were getting a lot of airplay on MTV. And Van Halen was just kind of nowhere. We didn't know what was going to go on. They were looking for a new lead singer because, again, depending on who you talk to, David Lee Roth left the band or Van Halen fired David Lee Roth. But they were looking for a lead singer. And in my room, my teenage room, I had two posters hanging up, or I had a lot of posters, but two of the posters I had hanging up were, I had a Van Halen poster, which was their Van Halen 1 album cover, which is, it's split into four pieces, and it has, David Lee Roth, Eddie Van Halen, Michael Anthony, and Alex Van Halen, and I had that poster hanging up, and I also had a poster of Sammy Hagar in his yellow jumpsuit VOA motif that he used to wear back in those times. You can go look, if you go watch I Can't Drive 55, you can see what he was wearing, and I had that poster up. And so when David Lee Roth left the band, I took my Sammy Hagar poster and I pasted it over David Lee Roth on the Van Halen poster, and my friends would come up and I go, man, wouldn't it be so cool if Sammy Hagar were the lead singer of Van Halen? Man, that would rock, and they're like, no, it's not going to happen. That's crazy. And then, it was probably 4 or 5 months later, 6 months later, whenever they announced that Sammy Hagar was going to be the lead singer of Van Halen, my friends were like, oh my gosh, you're Nostradamus, you're incredible, you're a prophet. And it was great. And so when they announced that Sammy Hagar was going to be the lead singer of Van Halen, I was just beside myself. I was like, I can't believe it. My two of my favorite artists of all time coming together and joining forces. And so on this date, March 24th, 1986, I went out and bought the cassette tape of 5150, and the thing that I think that's missing in music today, one of the things, is back in my day, and I'm not one of those guys that thinks that things were always better back in the day. I like to look forward. Today's today and tomorrow's going to be tomorrow. And if I wake up, I can make it a good day. So I'm not one of those overly nostalgic guys that thinks things were always better back in the day. I do think music was better back in the day, but I think everyone thinks that. But I remember buying cassettes, and even CDs when they came out, or albums before cassettes. You would put them in your machine. You had to have a cassette player or a record player or a CD player, and you'd hit play and you would listen. And you'd have to listen to the whole album or the whole cassette. And I remember putting 5150 in there and just listening from the start to the finish, the opening sound of Good Enough, and then Why Can't This Be Love, and just every song. And I remember listening to the album and just being blown away. It had everything that you could want, in my opinion. It was rocking, and I think some people who think that the album didn't feature Eddie Van Halen's guitar playing enough, you need to go listen to some of those songs. Some of the stuff that he did in those songs was just ridiculously phenomenal. Maybe the mix was a little bit different, and it was, but man, he's still a guitar hero. He plays keyboards on there. Sammy Hagar can sing the phone book and it would sound good as a rock and roll album. One of the greatest voices, one of the greatest rock and roll voices of all time, in my opinion. And I went and saw him a few years ago. He was in his 70s and he can still sing. He can still wail. He's just a phenomenal singer, phenomenal songs. And from start to finish, the album just blew me away. It will always hold a place in my heart as one of my top albums of all time. Are there better Van Halen albums? Probably. Are there better songs than some of the songs on 5150? Probably. But in terms of when it was released, when I was 16 years old, and the impact it had on me at that time, and the fact that I was a huge Van Halen fan and a huge Sammy Hagar fan, it was perfect. And Sammy Hagar's running Van Halen, and I like Van Halen. I'm not a Van Halen versus Van Hagar type guy. I love Van Halen from start to finish. Not that enamored with Gary Sharon, although again, some of the instrumental stuff Eddie did on that album was great, and the newer Van Halen album with Roth is okay, but 5150 is, again, in my opinion, one of the greatest rock and roll / pop rock and roll albums of all time, and it just hit at the perfect time. And you can watch those first few years when they were together, and Hagar and Eddie Van Halen had their issues as they got older, and Eddie's talked about that before he passed away. Sammy talked about it before Eddie passed away, and then they actually reconnected from the sounds of it. They were texting each other and made up and everything. But 5150, on this day, 5150 was released, and I was going to have it playing in the background, but it seems like every time I do a YouTube video, which I post the podcast on YouTube, I get some kind of copyright infringement thing, and it just is ridiculous. So go to Spotify, go to Apple Music, go to Google Music, go to YouTube, go wherever you listen to music, type in 5150 and just listen to it from start to finish, and you'll be amazed at how great it is. The louder you listen to it, the better it's going to sound. There's so many cool songs on that album, and 5150 is one of the songs on the album. It's the title of the album. It's one of the songs. Listen to that song. Listen to the guitar parts in that song. When Love Walks In, Why Can't This Be Love, Dreams. I mean, so many great songs, so many great music videos, and so this date, March 24th, 1986, 35 years ago, was a phenomenal date, and for me, just 5150, and I'll take credit. I'll pretend that my pasting Sammy Hagar's picture on the poster of Van Halen was directly responsible for Sammy Hagar being the lead singer of Van Halen. So it's a good thing I didn't post Marky Mark's picture. He wasn't around back then, but he was in 88 though, wasn't he? It's a good thing I didn't post some weird person's picture on the poster. Otherwise, we might have some totally different dynamics going on. But 5150, this is just a podcast in praise of 5150. The album's phenomenal, and I've listened to it a couple times already today. I'll probably listen to it again as I get ready to drive and go to church and stuff, but great album. And again, because this is Theological Pipe, I've talked about this before when I've done my album reviews. Music is a gift. And again, I can listen to those songs, and I'm back at 16 years old, and I can remember the good times, I can remember the bad times, and I could get through those things. And music does that for people. So again, if you haven't listened to 5150 ever, listen to it. If you've listened to it before and you're like, yeah, I'm a Van Halen with Roth guy, go listen to it anyway. It's such a good album, such a good thing. So this is in praise of 5150. Music is a gift, and I thank God every day. I listen to music every day, and thank God for the gift of music that, again, can soothe us and get us through tough times and help us remember, the good times, and help us reminisce, and also help us look forward. So in praise of 5150, put that in your theological pipe and smoke it. Be nice. And we'll see you next time.
Well, bye.